Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Maria Gutierrez, and I will be facilitating today's ECHO, the Texas Developmental Screening and Surveillance Program, brought to you by UT Health San Antonio in collaboration with the Texas Department of State Health Services. Before we do get started, I'd like to remind everyone of a few housekeeping items. To help with attendance, please enter your full name, affiliation, and email into the chat. Thank you to everyone who has started that train going. Please remember to please stay muted unless you're speaking. However, we do encourage everyone to share their insights, ask questions, comments via chat, or you raising your little hand in the Zoom channel as well. As a reminder, these sessions are being recorded for later distribution, which we'll make sure to share with everyone. If you are having connection issues, please privately chat UT Echo IT, Julio, who will be joining us today. Lastly, today's session will begin with team introductions, followed by a didactic presentation and a patient case study. We will then move on to breakout rooms for the case discussion, and we'll wrap back up in the main room once we're prompted by IT. As a reminder to everyone, to ensure privacy, no personal health information is allowed at any point during today's session. This does include names, addresses, birthdays, or any other identifiable information. Let us always make every effort to avoid bias and stigmatizing terms so that we can continue having a space that is respectful and safe to learn for everyone. With that, I'll start off with some team introductions. We have Faith Rivera. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Faith Rivera, and I am the CEO of Alice Avitas Consulting. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us.
Thank you, Faith. We also have our lead specialist for today, Dr. Dorothy Mandel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dorothy Mandel. I am an associate professor at UT Health Houston School of Public Health, and I'm excited to see so many people here today.
Thank you, Dr. Mandel. And new to the Hub team and Echo Space, Elizabeth Frisby.
I am Dr. Elizabeth Frisby. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm currently the infant and early childhood mental health consultant for Champions for Children, and glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Frisby. We're excited to have you as part of the team. And we also have our didactic presenter, Becky.
Hi, everybody. I'm Becky Swindall. I'm a child development specialist, and I work here at Champions for Children. So I'm excited to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Becky, for joining us today. We're excited to have you present for the team. With that, I think we'll go ahead and get started with the didactic presentation. We won't take up most of your time for today. So Julio, when you are ready to go, if you can share that screen for us, and Becky will take it away.
Okay, so hi everybody. When I was approached and asked to present this, I really love the ECHO initiative. So developmental screenings is super, super important. It's a soapbox that I tend to get on quite a bit whenever I provide continuing education. So a little bit of background on who I am. I've been in the field since 1997. So I was a toddler teacher, preschool teacher, then moved up to be an assistant director, and then I owned my own center for a small time period. So I have a lot of background in working both in the classroom with the children, learning how to identify behaviors, seeing patterns in the classroom, trying to learn how to navigate and develop partnerships. And then now I work for Champions for Children as a child development specialist. And so now I've evolved into the training side of things to where I work with directors and teachers, and I'm hearing about evolving problems and changes in children, and that children aren't the same as what they were 20 years ago. And things that I did in the classroom 20 years don't work anymore. And, how do we adapt? And so coming here today to talk about accommodations in the classroom, I'm really happy to kind of share what I've learned over the years. So on top of that, also, I'm a researcher at the University of Texas at Tyler. And so I was actually blessed with the opportunity a couple of years ago to conduct a research where we partnered with child care centers in our community to conduct developmental screenings to really highlight the importance of screening all children, because it's not just children who have like diagnosed special needs. All children have needs that are unique to them. And it isn't unless we screen all children that we'll be able to identify how we can accommodate the environment for all children in our classroom. So, okay. So disclosures, so the views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of my own, and they do not reflect the official views and policies of UT Health San Antonio. I have no financial conflicts or interest of disclosures concerning this presentation. So UT Health San Antonio ECHO recognizes that language is constantly evolving, and while we make every effort to avoid bias and stigmatizing terms, we acknowledge that unintentional lapses may occur in our presentations. We value your feedback and encourage you to share any concerns related to language, images, or concepts that may be offensive or stigmatizing. Your input will help us to refine and improve our presentations, ensuring they remain inclusive and respectful to participants. Okay, so the objectives today is I wanted to take us through and really dissect what is our role as early childhood educators. Next, we need to kind of really dig in and look at what are our resources available when we do need to refer out and bring in specialized support. But when we talk about adjusting our environment in an early childhood classroom, it's a two-pronged approach, because not all children need professional therapists to come in. A lot of children are in that gray area and just need slight accommodations to their environment that we can do as teachers. So we're going to look at different ways that we can stage our environment, simple strategies where we can meet individual needs of children in the classroom, really dissect teaching tactics where we can support skill development, and promote communication between the center and the home. So anytime we talk about adjusting care and making accommodations, we always need to step back and look at the minimum standards. So the last several publications of minimum standards, they keep adding more requirements for accommodations for children with special needs and inclusive care. So it's important for you directors who are in the room to be very aware of the paperwork requirements that we're required to have. And remember, these are laws of the state of Texas. It's not an option to facilitate these. They are requirements. So if you have a parent who has come in and said that my child has been diagnosed by a doctor, not I have a feeling that there's a delay with my child, but an actual diagnosed delay with their child, then you need to have paperwork on file that has what those doctor recommendations are and what accommodations are recommended for that child. So every single one of you, think about 746-1203 general responsibilities. And so that one is provide care that is consistent with the child's habits, interests, strengths, any special needs, and any special supervision needs. So when we think about making accommodations in the classroom, accommodations that we make aren't always going to be just for children with special needs. They're also going to be for children who have, strengths, and sometimes children that we're having challenging behaviors with or, unruly behavior with, it's not that they have a developmental delay. It might be that they're extremely intelligent and we need to adjust the environment to accommodate that they're bored and that's why they're acting out. And so that's why you need to do these developmental screenings to identify what is it that's causing this behavior, because all behavior is communication. And so it's our responsibility to provide care that adjusts and changes the environment. So we're required to make accommodations for all these different types of children. All right, orientation. So directors, it's your job to communicate to your staff what procedures are going to follow in an emergency, which children are at your center who have special needs. It could be allergies, it could be seizures, it could be, for severe autism, certain behaviors, if they have certain triggers. And so you need to have behavior action plans in place, and it's your responsibility to clearly communicate that to your staff. Okay, next slide. All right, and once again, for our annual training, you're also required to have these with your staff and you also as a director. So you need to, every year, you need to have training about what medication is administered, how to respond in emergencies, and what care is provided for children with special needs. So today's certificate and all of these ECHO trainings can support that part of it. So activity planning responsibilities. We have to follow recommendations of healthcare professionals, school districts, and early childhood intervention programs. We are required to use provided equipment, and we are required to accommodate intervention services and integrate children with and without special needs. And we have to equip the environment with equipment and procedures. And so then you get the question of, how am I supposed to do this and also maintain ratios? And so that becomes the point when you have to have serious conversations with parents and with providers and providing extra supervision for certain children that have special accommodations to where it's causing risk and safety problems with the other children in care. So there's lots of things that you have to talk about and plan when you're talking about early childhood centers and making accommodations and enrolling children with special needs. Okay, next slide. All right, so what is our role? It is never, ever, ever, ever our role to diagnose a child with a delay. So it is our responsibility to survey them, surveillance, so we monitor them on a daily basis. We notice that maybe they're not talking like other children, they're not walking like other children, and then we're going to do a developmental screening. And then that developmental screening is going to lead us to where we will communicate with the parents for them to go off and get diagnosed. So always remember that it is never our job to diagnose a delay. We need to remember that some parent, just because you have a child does not mean that you know things about child development. And especially if it's your first child or you don't have siblings for them to compare to, they don't have a room full of 2-year-olds to compare them to other 2-year-olds. And so they might not realize that there's a delay in their child. They just think, well, that's just the way my child is. And they don't have anything to compare by. And so it is our responsibility as early childhood educators and professionals that when we notice that there's a developmental difference, that we communicate that to parents. It's a really, really hard thing to acknowledge and a very gentle thing that we need to approach. So when you're in the classroom and you notice a delay, keep it observational. It's not, I notice they're not making eye contact. I think your child has autism. You start noticing that a child's not making eye contact, and then you notice that the child's not interacting with other children in the center. So then you start to keep a log on a piece of paper, and then instead you pick up a developmental screening, and then you notice that they're delayed in social emotional development. And then you do a social emotional developmental screening. Then you call a parent conference. Then you send them to the doctor. And so keep those steps in mind of what our role is as early childhood educators, that we have to very carefully follow these steps each time we notice that there's a delay in a child, because it is a very, very delicate situation. Okay, next slide. So when we do notice that there's a delay, so if you've got a phone, pick up, scan for the QR code. It can bring you to the website, because that's the scary part, right? We notice there's a delay. What next? So you call a family conference with the teacher, with the director, with the parent. You give them the results of the developmental screening, and always remember to sandwich the negatives with 2 positives. Your child is wonderful. These are their strengths. Here's something that we noticed in the classroom, or here's something that we noticed in this developmental screening. Once again, we really enjoy working with them, and we can see that if we can get them guidance, we can really get on the path to developmental success. So when you get to that point, the next step is always refer them to the pediatrician. So, and because sometimes, and then you're going to say, well, they get screened at the pediatrician. Why am I even going to go through this? Well, guess what? Things can get missed at the pediatrician. So they might have gone to the pediatrician a couple of months ago and they didn't catch it. So we caught it, and then you send them with that piece of paper to the pediatrician. And then at that point, you also can get in touch with early childhood intervention services. So they are required. I mean, it's required by the laws of our country, so that when you reach out to them, then they are required to follow through and provide services for that child. So from the point of contact to ECI, they've got 45 days to get in touch with you. Usually takes on average about 3 months to get services started. So, and services stop at 3 years. So this is where we can kind of get into a gray area between 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, because when they start to get to where they're about 2 years and 6 months, then it kind of starts to become that point where, do I reach out to ECI for services, or do I reach out to early childhood special education services through the public school system? So if you can go on to the next slide. So if you're at that like 2 years, 6 month beyond window, then it might be a situation where instead you go to the Special Education Information Center and you start to reach out to get the individual education plan through special education services. So these are for the very severely delayed children that are going to need really additional therapy, additional care. So ECI services is where they can come into your center and provide speech therapy and occupational therapy and ABA. But once they turn 3, they age out of that program, and then they're going to need to go to the special education services. And so great, thanks for adding that link into the chat. And so this is where it's important for you as early childhood educators to educate yourselves on what these resources are and how to communicate to the parents how to get there next, because it's a really scary world for them. They haven't navigated it before. So when we have children and we've worked in the industry for 20 plus years, we have experience navigating that system. So prepare yourself to give them that information and hold their hand through the next steps of getting to these resources. And because once you open the door, the resources just happen. But getting the parent to go to the door and open the door is where our role lies. So once we identify the delay in the classroom, we really need to be prepared to hold the parent's hand to walk them through the door of getting to these services. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is where it really comes into what can we do? What accommodations can we make in the classroom? So when they get ECI services, we've got to prepare for who's going to be coming to our center to visit. So we need to be ready to open our doors for these speech therapists to come, for these occupational therapists to come, because it is a disruption for them to come into the center and come into the classroom. So we've got to be sure that we are clearly communicating to the providers, the parents, and the directors, and the teachers, and the therapists, that everybody knows who's coming, what time, when, and for who. And on top of that, we also have to keep in mind the minimum standard where these professionals who are coming in to provide therapy for these children, have they had orientation? So have they had a background check? So you need to ensure that the agency that they work for has conducted a background check. And then to cover yourselves as directors, you need to be sure that if it's somebody who's coming into your center on a regular basis, I would have an orientation sheet that they have signed on file in my center to show licensing that these people who come in, that they have, look, it just raised my hand because I raised my hand. That's technology for you. That's funny, you guys. Okay, so you need to be sure that you're following those licensing rules and that you're covering your bases so that if licensing comes in and asks about who's coming in to provide services and for these special needs children, that you have conducted the orientation to cover your back. Okay, next slide. So you are not expected to be a therapist. However, you can use very simple strategies to benefit the entire class. So up until this point, I've been talking about children with severe special needs. Now I kind of get off to the tangent of we all have special needs. I think that it comes into that thought process that we're all neurodivergent in our own unique ways. And so when we're educators of young children, when they're rapidly developing, their brains are all developing at different rates, then we have to be prepared to accommodate that classroom to meet all learners. And we're all unique and we all have different triggers and we all have different things that we need to do to keep ourselves calm and in a happy place. The early childhood classroom is a stressful place. And so when we're stressed, we're also not learning because we're in fight or flight and we're in baby brain. And so we have to do accommodations in the classroom to meet all learners to keep it as calm as possible so that we can all be in executive functioning to really learn while we're in the classroom with each other for 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. Okay, next slide. Okay, so one simple thing that we can do is visual supports. I know it sounds simple, but they're actually really quite effective. Children need concrete reminders. It helps them understand clear start and end points, provides clear representation of expectations. It reduces anxiety with children, and it promotes positive behaviors. Visual schedules is also a thing that is very, very helpful. Take pictures of the children actually engaging in breakfast and engaging in center play or breakfast and then circle time and then center play and then going on to another circle time and outside time. And as you go throughout the day, move a clipboard, a paper clip down as you go throughout the day. So another really important thing to consider with your schedules is reducing the amount of transitions that you're doing throughout the day. If you look at your time blocks and every 30 minutes you're switching on to a different activity, then you need to look to see how you can possibly reschedule that day to where you have like breakfast, circle time, and then a really long window of center play. Because we've got to remember that play is children's work. And when we're structure, requiring them to sit at tables, requiring them to come sit at circle time and then go sit at the tables and then line up and go outside and then come and sit in circle time, we're not creating an environment that's going to be successful for any child. So really look at your daily routine and see how you can simplify the process to accommodate all children. Choice boards. So provide visuals where they can put their name on a list to choose where they're going. We need to divide the space of where they play, limit how many children go in different centers. Children have tasks lists, so if there's multiple tasks, they can work through visually to where you can point through the day. This really helps children move from step to have concrete visual examples. Cue cards, so you can have them point, you did this, congratulations, you did that step. Now let's move on to the next step, and they can see it. They can see what they're supposed to do, accomplish the task. Go back and look at it. You did it, because we need to give them lots of positive reinforcement for each simple, successful step that they're able to accomplish throughout the day. Okay, next slide. All right, sensory needs. This is a huge one. And we need to really, really keep this in mind when we're in our environment. So we can have hyper responses or hypo responses. And we have the paradigm of responses of all the children in our classroom. And some children will switch themselves individually throughout the day. Like they might not start off the day being hyper responsive, but as they go through the day and they get tired, then then they start to become hyper responsive. So we need to look at our classroom and look at textures and sounds and different movement opportunities that we can provide. I was thinking about this morning, and we expect, I was listening to a podcast a couple weeks ago about ADHD and that we've had it all wrong. And, we've diagnosed all these children with ADHD who, when they get to be adults, they're perfectly fine functioning adults. And it's because when you're adults, you have freedom to choose your environment. And it's really not necessarily the human that's the problem. It's the human's interaction with the environment that's the problem. So it's like, maybe I have a problem sitting still, and it's not that that's a problem with me, because that's actually quite coveted as adults, to not be lazy. I have high energy and I can do things. So we need to provide outlets. When we're requiring young children to sit still and be quiet, then yeah, that's going to produce challenging behaviors and make it to where they're going to act out. And it's not because they have ODD, or, global developmental delay. It's just that we are expecting our tiny Texans to act like little adults, and it's unrealistic. And so until we adjust and make accommodations to match the developmental needs of the children in our classroom, we're going to keep having challenging behaviors. So we need to provide those noise canceling headphones. We need to have tons of fidget toys available, have swings in the classroom and rocking equipment. And this is where I'm laughing, because right now my feet are on a rocker under my desk, because when I sit at a desk, I literally rock my feet while I talk. So as adults, we integrate these adaptions for ourselves. And so we need to think, how can we put these simple adaptions into the classroom for all learners? I love it. I sit in a rock hammock chair in your desk so I can rock too. Yeah. And it's really simple things that we can make adjustments to in the classroom. But we tend to structure the classroom for one kind of learner, but when we can put little tiny different additions into the classroom, we can make huge adjustments. And then you're going to see sweeping changes in the behavior of children in your classroom. Okay. Next slide. Okay, support. So once again, this all really does always go back to the basics. And so provide clear warning of changes. All children, thrive in these certain circumstances. Some children need clear positive action statements. I would venture to say all children need clear positive action statements. Whenever I'm doing observations to certify candidates for CDA certification, one of the feedback that I get back to them many times is remove asking them. Don't say, like, will you clean up, or do you want to clean up, or do you want to do this? No, you just need to put them, hang up your jacket, go line up, good job. And it might start off with hang up your jacket, good job, go line up, good job. And it's when you add that why or that request at the end, you're giving them the option to say no. And it's really about teaching them about responsibilities. We're going to go all through life and have responsibilities. Yeah, exactly. If it's not a question, don't phrase it as one. And you think like, well, I'm barking orders and I'm telling them what to do. No, you're an educator and you're teaching them how to be a functioning person in society. So next is develop a routine, and it provides predictability. Model and repeat. Model and repeat. It's going to take doing it over and over and over and over. And it might be the 500th time, it might be the 5,000th time, but eventually they will get it. But when we get frustrated and we get testy, then that is the moment where everything spins out of control. We have to be patient, guide them, and eventually it will click. Some of them get it on the 5th time. Some of them will get it on the 5,000th time. But we have to deliver with the equal amount of patience each time. And the great thing about working with young children is that one child who got it the 5th time, they'll also teach it to the other children. So they'll be there to be your little mini teachers too. And so remember that those gifted children in your classroom can also be there to model and repeat. And so you can kind of distribute an army of educators in your classroom by identifying where children are developmentally. First and then statements, I kind of said that a second ago. And so give them clear guidance, and this really is just about rewarding. Yes, like, yes, I know you don't want to complete this lacing activity. So say the activity is that you have the first letter of their name hole punched and they have to lace yarn lacings of the letter of their name. I don't want to. I was like, I know, this is hard work. You can do it, lace your name. And as soon as you're done with it, you can go back to the block center and drive your trucks. So it's like that reward at the end of the task. And so it's like, am I bribing them with candy? No, but am I bribing them with that once you complete this job, you can go on and do an activity that you love to do? Yes, absolutely. Okay, next slide. So this is really about scaffolding. We need to present task that a child is able to complete, right? Because we never want to start off with failure, right? When we start off with failure, so one child says they can't do it, then I always respond that there's nothing that you can't do and you do not want to do and you do not know how to do. Let's figure out which one it is exactly. And it's like you take the can't out of can't. And when you take the T out of can't, it's I can. So absolutely. And so you want to start off by building their confidence. And so start off by presenting them with a skill that you're trying to get them to develop. Like, let's say building a tower where it has like the two with the little one across, the two with the thing, that's a sequential development of block building. And so, but all they're able to currently do is build a 3-blocked tower. And so you're trying to encourage them to understand the concept of the two side by side with the roof on the top. So you're not going to start off with asking them to build this taller structure. You're going to start off by encouraging them to build the 2 and the 3 and congratulate them on a good job. And then right after they're successful with that, then you demonstrate the next level of block building. And then when they're struggling, then you provide them guidance. If you start to see they're getting frustrated, go back to where they were successful, praise them on a job well done, demonstrate the next level again, and then provide support. And so it's a very slow process, but you always want to start off with where were they successful, because when they start to feel that they were a failure and they weren't able, then they have a hard time getting confidence to move forward and try again. And so it just takes repetition, 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 and really paying attention to how they're feeling in that moment and when you need to go back to build back into them. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we have to be the child's advocate. It is our observations, our patience, and our routine that help children thrive. This next bullet is my next soapbox, my podium that I tend to get on a lot. If you hear me present multiple times, you'll hear me first talk about developmental screenings, and then you're going to hear me talk about parental education. So we have to be a parent advocate. Until we are able to build the bridge between an early childhood center and home, the child is forever going to struggle, really, because they're living within 2 worlds, and the 2 worlds have to connect. And I really think that nowadays, with technology and phones and tablets and devices, that the divide between everybody is more challenging. And when I talk to directors and teachers about parental involvement, I get laughed at. And so that's concerning, right? So we have to do more work than we used to in the past to connect with parents. So we have to work harder to really break down the divide between school and home in order to educate parents. Because just because you're the parent of a child doesn't mean you have any knowledge about child development, education, and the needs of young children. It's our responsibility as professionals of young children to spread this knowledge home to the families. So when you identify a delay in a child, or when you're responsible for a group of young children, remember you are not alone in what you're doing with these young children. It takes a village. So there's support services available in your director, in your parents, in ECI, in special education through the public school system, in the Andrews Center, in the Workforce Center, in Child Development Services. There are all these different agencies that are out there to support. You're not alone. And so identify what your resources are and build your support system so we can all, because it's a community. And the more that we can help these young children, the better off the whole community will be. Okay. And that's it. That's all I've got. So thank you very
Wow.
much for having me today.
Wow, Becky, that was an amazing presentation. Thank you for that reminder that little ones are growing and patience is still very much required for them. I know I frequently forget that with both of my nieces. I'm like, okay, they're little ones, they're still growing. Does anybody have any questions for Becky before we move on to announcements?
Hi, this is Sandra. I have a comment just real briefly. That was an
Go ahead.
excellent presentation on scaffolding and working with children with different disabilities and how we need to incorporate that into our policies and to our daily schedules and lesson planning. And I'm a Texas Rising Star program, and something that I talked with the mentor was that if add that portion of to the training certificate of lesson planning or developing these policies into our policies or whatever, then we can get credit for this additional resource through ECHO that we utilize through the UT health science system and these presentations. So I would really appreciate that because y'all give excellent trainings.
Thank you, Sandra. In the interest of time, I will move on to announcements. However, if you have any questions for Becky, I do encourage you to type those up in the chat and Becky can address them. Julio, when you get a chance, if you can upload some announcements for me, please. Awesome. Thank you so much. Don't forget to claim credit using your TechPeds account and scanning the QR code on the screen. You may also use the link in the chat. We'll make sure to also send this out to everyone via email. Please confirm that, please keep in mind that you do need to use the same email for your TechPeds account. And I echo to make sure you do receive that certificate within a few days. Next slide. If you're interested in presenting a case, please feel free to submit a case to the link in the chat, which will be echoinfo@utesca.edu. Next slide. Please don't forget to join us at our next Texas Dishes Echo on Friday, August 8th. This session will look a little bit different as we will use this space to learn from you to help us improve upcoming sessions. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and insights to better support children and families. So don't forget to join us next month. Next slide. And as a reminder, this session will be moving on to breakout rooms shortly after a case presentation, and then we'll be coming back to the main session where we'll all gather before we wrap up. Thank you so much, Julio. And with that, we'll move on to our case presentation. Natalie, once Julio has that case up on the screen, you may take it away.
Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie Garcia. My case presentation today will be about speech therapy and occupational therapy with limited health coverage. Can go to the next slide. Okay. So I work for an agency called Todos Juntos. So just really quickly explaining what Todos Juntos is. We're a program focused on providing free English classes to the community through a partnership we have with ACC. That being said, we are a dual generational program that not only focuses on giving the parent the free English class, but we also have a licensed childcare center aimed for children ages 1 through 4 years old. Our licensed childcare program is focused on providing curriculum based on the child's developmental age, and kind of assisting with the separation issues that parents usually deal with when the children first goes into school. So with being in the childcare program, they kind of get used to that separation little by little and get used to being in the classroom setting. That way it's not such a big separation when they first go to school. Along with that, our program also offers parenting classes. It's called Mi Familia and Me. And basically what that is just sessions to inform parents in identifying their unique child's developmental stage and how they can best navigate that stage, because a lot of them may be struggling and not know how to best navigate those different stages. And along with that, we also have case management services with our social workers that tackle a variety of different barriers, including health barriers, access to mental health, transportation, and so much more. I can move on to the next slide. So just a quick introduction to me. I'm one of the social workers at Todos Juntos. I am a family case manager. So very quickly and briefly about what that means. I ensure that the whole family gets access to the barriers that they may be experiencing within their educational experience in our agency. So that could be access to healthcare, transportation, access to food, vaccinations, therapy referrals, and so much more. So with my role, it's pretty unique because I not only focus on the student that's attending our ACC class, but I also have a unique focus on the child that attends our licensed childcare program. So I kind of look at the needs that not only the parent has, so they may have their own, say like healthcare needs, but the child also may have their own healthcare needs. So my job is to kind of facilitate that barrier that they may be experiencing to make things a little bit easier on them, and to main goal is to have them keep taking their English classes and have them stay in our program. A lot of the times this includes speech therapy referrals and occupational therapy referrals, and we do assessments in-house, doing PLS-5 and ASQ assessments. I do not do those assessments. We have a designated person. Our family education and evaluation manager does that, but I assist in the process as far as like guiding parents on where to go to receive these occupational and speech therapy services. So the next slide will talk a little bit about the actual case. So this specific case was one of our harder cases in our referrals that we had this year. So we had a child in our program. He is 3 years old. Family is considered below the 200% poverty level, so they're even below the 200%. The only type of medical coverage they have is MAP. They do not qualify for Medicaid. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little, I see. The assessments that we did indicated that the child is in need for speech therapy and occupational therapy, which happens a lot, especially because the family is bilingual, and speech therapy is a big pattern that we see in a lot of our kiddos and services that they need. The child does not qualify for ECI services as they have already hit that 3-year mark, but they're still like kind of in that in-between phase before they start school. Since there are only 3, I believe the child will be starting school in the fall, but I have to check in since it's the summer. I haven't had the chance to check in with the family yet. We did make a referral to Developmental Pediatrics. They initially were on a 1.5-year waiting list. The child was already 3. Since last time we checked in, they brought down that waiting list to 1 year, and it was for both speech therapy and occupational. Other traditional agencies that we usually refer children who do have Medicaid, they do not accept MAP as a valid form of medical coverage. And we've asked about sliding scales as a possibility for this family, but it usually ranges anywhere from like $100 to more, which is per session, which is completely undoable for this family, given that they are at the 200% poverty level. We, as an agency, went ahead and made the decision to sponsor the family for their occupational therapy sessions, and we paid for 7 occupational therapy sessions through a occupational therapist that we had. So we kind of tried to like close that gap because they're wasting a lot of time before they actually get to start services at traditional school. So we kind of try to close that gap a little bit and start their occupational therapy services, but child is still in need of speech therapy services. On top of that, the family experiences transportation barriers. So their main form of transportation is CAP Metro bus route. And then another barrier that they have is that the child is mainly Spanish speaking. So as many of us probably know, Spanish-speaking speech therapists are very hard to come by and very often have waiting lists already, even if they do have Medicaid. So that's a quick, just, what's it called? Quick case presentation. We've kind of come through like a barrier with this case, a stop. So we're kind of just left at like the waiting till child starts school to be able to start those services, as they don't qualify anymore. And I can go to the next slide. So my main question was, how can we best support families that need and are receiving multiple services, and what resources can be offered to aid during this waiting period like this child is waiting right now?
Thank you, Natalie. Do we have any questions for Natalie before we go into the breakout rooms? I do see a question from Kelly. Does the school district have any early intervention programs, Natalie?
From my understanding, yes. The child is kind of in a like in between phase right now, so they have not officially started school. So child may not even start school until they're 4 years old. They're still 3. But I just have to check in with parent when school starts again in the fall.
Thank you. Any other questions for now?
I think I see, why was OT offered first and not speech therapy? That was only because the only contact that we had as an agency for a therapist that was willing to offer us that sliding scale was a occupational therapist. We have been still looking for that speech therapist that has been able to offer us a doable amount for a sliding scale, or even that would be able to take MAP, but we haven't been able to find that yet.
Natalie, the other question is, have you utilized Help Me Grow? Because there is Help Me Grow in your area.
No, I would love to know more about that.
I'll connect you. I'll get you the number. I
Thank you.
also
Okay.
have one more question for you, because so everybody knows MAP is the program that helps covered uninsured folks in Central Texas. Every area calls it something different. I was wondering if this child has actually been referred back to a pediatrician at Central Health for them to be further evaluated.
I believe they have. I'm trying to think because there was like so many referrals that I did this year. But I believe they have, and they referred child over to the same place that we began their referral to, and they're kind of still stuck in that year waiting list.
Yeah, for the
Thank you.
developmental pediatrician. So Heidi has a question.
So just to clarify, in case I missed it, you have referred them to their local school system, correct? Do you have a specific contact person at their local school district? Because that is ultimately where they are going to receive services, even if they haven't started school. So even at the age of 3, they do not have to wait at 4. So the question specifically is, do you have a specific contact at the school, at the child's local school?
No, not yet.
That would be number one place you need to start, and they do not have to wait till school starts. That can be started now. So that honestly is the very first thing that needs to be done is if the parents aren't going to, if they don't have the, you know, they may need you to hold their hand with that, is what I'm saying. Is that, and if you could even call their local school district of where their elementary school is going to be. And then literally they will walk you through everything. If you just call and explain to the office personnel, this is what you're looking for, they will give you the number that you are seeking. And that can be done immediately.
So does that mean child has to be attending school in the fall?
No.
Or can they still
No.
get services even though they're not attending?
Yes, and that transportation, if they qualify for services, they will provide transportation as well. Since I know you said transportation was an issue, if the child does qualify for their local school district, then transportation normally will be provided. So make sure that you ask when you call about that specifically as well, since that is a barrier for the family.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I want to
Absolutely.
do one more thing because you are in Austin, and in the Austin Independent School District, pre-K can start at 3. And
Yeah.
so the child would be eligible for public pre-K. I know it's the summertime right now, but this is also one of those situations of getting them started with the school district as soon as possible, because sometimes that takes a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of our families are a little bit afraid of starting that process because this specific family just started with our program this past fall. So they're like, well, my child is doing so well in your program. Why would I want to start them when they can still continue in your program for another year? And we kind of try to push them towards the school district because they have a lot more resources with them too. But ultimately it is their decision. We do try to push it though. Any other questions?
And we put the phone number, Annika put the phone number and the link to Help Me Grow for Central Texas.
Yes, I will write that down.
Kelly, I see you posted something in the chat. Did you want to go ahead and unmute?
I would just say that I'm going through this myself with the family, and you know, the developmental milestones and everything. We did get him services because he qualified for Medicaid. So he's getting occupational therapy and speech therapy, and he has another therapist. I don't even know what they do. Honestly, they just come and do the same thing as the other two. He works with 3 different therapists, and we reached out to the ISD and started this process in May. I encourage the parents to start that process because it can take months. I went through this with my own son, and I was getting him for autism to get into the school district. So I was like, it can take months. Let's start the process. So they went and they've done a couple of evaluations through ISD. And he has to wait until he turns 3, which will be August 31st. So he'll start school this like September 2nd or something after Labor Day. But like you can get them tested when they're 2, like 2.5 through the, you can go get them tested now through the ISD. You don't have to wait any longer. They even do testing over the summer, so you can call them and get that set up so that when, you know, if they're not 3 yet, they can get in when they do turn 3. And that's, and advocate for them, because sometimes the parents are overwhelmed and they don't know where to go. And had I not gone through it with my own son, I probably would not have been that much of a resource. But you can tell the parents, look, I know, you know, sometimes there's a language barrier with the people doing the evaluations. If you would like me to sit on a Zoom call with you. And that's what I had to do, is I had to sit on a Zoom call because they didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to describe what they were seeing. They had the paperwork in front of them. They had the developmental milestones, but they felt lost. So I was like, look, I can help you. I'm with your kid most of the day. If you want me there, just let me know. I'll set a time. We'll make it work. We got in a group Zoom call with the educators, and, you know, we talked about our concerns and our observations, and just kept encouraging mom that, you know, this is nothing that you did. This is just, you know, how some children are, and we're here to help you, and we want what's best for your child. And again, it's scary, but I'm here to help your child and you. So let's keep advocating for him, because that's your job as a parent, is to never stop. And if someone tells you, oh, well, he's just fine, it's just where he's at right now, don't accept that. you know your child, and if you know there's something going on, keep pushing for your child.
I agree with that. And I think additionally, a lot of our parents will experience, so they'll get our evaluation results and say like, well, he was flagged for a possibility of needing speech therapy. They'll go over to the pediatrician to reinforce that, and pediatrician will be like, well, I think they're fine. Like they only have a year left till school starts anyway, so I think they should just wait. So I think that's an additional barrier, and then parents are kind of afraid to push, like, no, I want this referral for my child to be able to start speech therapy services. That's another common barrier I've seen in a couple of our families that I'm trying to like work through. So maybe um, we've maybe like calling the pediatrician or being a part of that somehow would help that, because I've seen a lot of like back and forth with a pediatrician not wanting to complete that referral.
And again, with the same family, I talked to the pediatrician, and that's how we got him in to get evaluated for speech therapy and occupational therapy, because when mom went in, she didn't know how to describe what was happening. And so, she called me from the doctor's office, and she put me on speakerphone, and I said, I'm not, I can't diagnose. All I can tell you are my observations. I had his developmental milestones in front of me. She's like, do you think it's autism? I said, I don't know. My own son's autistic. I don't really see that kind of behaviors, but there is something else going on. And, these are my concerns. And I went down the list with the pediatrician on the phone. And, it's something as simple as that. Like, it can be very scary for a parent to go in, and doctors can be intimidating for a lot of people. Their medical professionals can sometimes be very dismissive, but if they talk to, the preschool teacher or the director of the school, they typically take that more seriously than just an over helicopter parent, So that can be a resource for the parent too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I want to add one more thing to Maria. I think we've destroyed our breakouts, but that's okay. This is a great discussion. The other thing I wanted to ask you, Natalie, and other people that are in childcare can also chime in on this. You had limited OT, but you did have OT. I was wondering if the childcare, the teacher also talked to the OT to talk about what the teacher could do to further emphasize and to actually provide the support. Because at this age, OT isn't the kid and the therapist. It's the therapist really teaching everyone around the child about OT. Same with speech as well. Those 30 minutes aren't going to change speech, but those 30 minutes with everybody else will change speech. So I was wondering if that connection happened with the OT you guys did bring in.
Not to my knowledge. I don't think they had a conversation with the teacher, but I do think that's a great point.
I think for everyone, I think that's something that with you guys in childcare that maybe it's overlooked a little bit. But as I've had more conversations with different childcare directors throughout the state, that has really come up. It's something that happened with my child, is the childcare director actually talked to the ECI person that was coming in and like, what did you work on this week? What do we do? How can we support her? And then pass that information on to us, but also made sure it was incorporated into the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to other childcare directors around the state too, who also have that really good relationship with the therapist who's coming in, and using that as an opportunity to help everybody in the childcare center.
Thank you, everyone, for that great discussion. Natalie, there was someone that posted in the chat, Tracy, recommending a dual language therapist. So make sure to, write that down. We can make sure to also send that to you. I know we're just a minute short from ending today's session. I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Mandel for a case summary for today.
Sure. Now that let me that was such a great presentation, Natalie. I really appreciate you doing that. And I really appreciate everybody engaging in it. And I think it was just another great example of how in the centers, things can be done to help accommodate not just kids with developmental delays and disabilities, but all children in the child care center, which goes to something that Becky said, is that we all can have accommodations. And I love the idea, Becky, of we also need to accommodate strengths. That may be something that I put up in a big banner and put over my office door right now, is I'm here to accommodate your strengths, not just your weaknesses. I have it in big letters on my notes. The big thing too is because we talk about developmental screening as a way to identify developmental needs. And I love that Becky also made the point that developmental screening is also a way to identify strengths and developmental strengths. And then that way we can accommodate those strengths. And tying that back into these are general responsibilities, minimum standards is to do that. I just want to emphasize again many things that Becky brought up about visual timers and visual schedules. I work very closely with a group of parents who help us on a different project who have children with special needs, and this is their number one thing they talk about. It's actually number two. Quiet corners are number one. Visual schedules are number two, that they say that they can walk into a child care center and immediately identify and think about whether or not that child care center is going to be able to accommodate their child. And interestingly enough, even families without children with developmental needs identify seeing quiet corners and visual schedules as high quality. The don't ask, oh my gosh, don't ask. Clear positive statements. If it's not a choice, don't give them a choice. My husband and I, that's just a lesson in parenting. My husband and I go through this all the time. Did we ask her or did we tell her? I also want to emphasize and really bring up and emphasize something that Becky said too about first then statements. Really important for kids with ADHD in particular, because if you make that then a reward for now, their brain goes crazy. But if you say we're doing this and then we do this, they're like clear what the standard is, they're clear what the sequence is, and it's not something that's going to bring up some crazy fuzz in their brain about over focusing on the reward. So absolutely first then. Scaffolding and going back to points of success, because that helps build those strengths moving forward. And scaffolding is like the basis of what you all do, and so important for early child care and early child education. And the big one that I want to bring home, that we try to bring home every week, every month with YECO, is that you're part of an early childhood team and know your team. If you're in a Help Me Grow area, make sure you are connected with your Help Me Grow folks. Make sure you know who your ECI group people are, and find out who your SPAD person is at your district, because they need to be a part of your early childhood team as well. And so with that, it's kind of my wrap up, Maria.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mando, and everyone for hanging on with us for 3 minutes over the time. As you can see in the chat, we do have the post-session survey along with the Tech Peds credit survey as well. Please make sure to complete both, and then we'll make sure that certificates get sent out to you all within a few days. Thank you, everyone, for still hanging out with us. We'll make sure to see you all again next month for our August 8th session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a good day and have a good weekend. Thank you.